What's something you wish you had been taught in sex ed? About the female body. Literally anything. I have a vagina and I have learned more about it from strangers on the internet than I did in school. I didn't know yeast infections were a thing. I didn't know about ovarian cysts until I had one rupture and I was rushed for my appendix to be removed until a female nurse suggested to see if it was that first. I didn't know a lot and still don't, but those two simple things I feel like I should definitely have known before I had to experience them. When I went through sex ed, they weren't allowed to talk about sex itself. The entire course was just about horror stories about what sex could do, mostly focusing on the diseases part. There was a small section where they talked about the uterus and fallopian tubes, but nothing about the genitals themselves. I don't think we talked about male anatomy at all. It was entirely a class designed to scare you away. It was worse than no sex ed at all, in my opinion. I'm sure lots of hormonal teenagers suddenly discovered, hey wait, this stuff is great. They must have been lying to me. Maybe the rest of it is a lie too. Like, pick a side, people. Actually talk about the subject so they can be informed about what they are getting into, or pretend it doesn't exist. Let them think they are a modern-day Magellan, and then do the surprised picaco face afterwards. Don't just give them so little information that they feel compelled to figure out the rest themselves. That it's okay for the woman to feel pleasure during sex / it's okay for women to masturbate. Or really any science, biology-backed real education. In my high school, that description of our sex ed class overview was an in-depth look into female sexual education combined with religious order, which was a way of saying it's a religion class that focuses on sex and threatening teenagers. I went through hardcore Catholic schooling, and in high school, they separated the boys from the girls into different classes for sex ed. I have no idea what the boys were taught about in their class, but in the girls' class, which was taught by a male teacher BTW, we were taught sex hurts. A lot. It will pretty much always hurt. Penetration causes bleeding, muscle tearing, lots of pain. You can feel all of it, but don't panic. It's normal and will happen every time. Pleasure is for the male partner. It's okay if it hurts you. It's okay if you're uncomfortable. Sex is meant for reproductive purposes only and won't last very long, aka, just lay there and take it. No matter how much it hurts, masturbation will get you sent to hell with snakes biting your breasts / nipples / vagina, and with snakes going up into your vagina forever. Masturbation is one of the highest sins. Oh yeah, I loved school. Sex ed was worthless for me. Everything I know, I learned from personal experience, independent research, and porn. The problem with sex education is, as usual, the religious Puritans. They're so easily triggered into a thunderstorm of outrage that educators live in constant fear of their wrath, so they neuter their sex ed programs to avoid the headache of dealing with another mob of screaming parents and Fox News reporters. My sex ed was in health class, where we were just simply told Bible verses and nothing about sex. The dude wouldn't even utter the word. Meanwhile, there were 3 pregnant chicks in my class at the time, obviously so, one had water break later that day. That homosexuality is a thing. I felt so alone. I wish we had sex ed, lol. I'm from a South Asian country, and the only thing I remember is one time in 8th grade a couple of school teachers came in, asked all the boys to go out for 30 minutes. I'm guessing that was them explaining stuff to the girls. Possibly menstruation and stuff. But we as boys got nothing. Whatever we learned from each other. Which basically meant whatever was available on the internet using a phone connection. Rather than it being a biology-centric class, it would have been great if they'd have explained how to actually do the sex, that foreplay isn't an alternative to sex but should be part of it, and my god, normalize the use of lubricant. I'd have had much happier and less sore partners if I'd known this when I first started out. Literally anything besides if you have sex you're going against God and he'll punish you and you'll be miserable for your entire life. We had kids in middle school get pregnant because our sex ed was so horrendous. I'm quite lucky to grow up somewhere that doesn't avoid the issues, so my sex ed was pretty decent. However, I definitely didn't learn enough about girls' bodies. I'm a guy. Not having much familiarity with periods and all the stuff they go through, and how to make sure they enjoy sex too. It's no wonder so many men are clueless to women's wants and needs. Maybe how to overcome performance anxiety? Question mark. I'm okay admitting it's happened to me before in the past. You can call me names if you want, but look. I just feel like you get so overly excited to have sex sometimes and you want to do a great job for her that you get in your head. So yeah, big deal. A few times I couldn't keep it up? Question mark. What? Question mark. Does that make me less of a man or something? Question mark. Like, come on. It happens to people. Great if it's never happened to you, but don't make me feel like crap for admitting it. What the heck is a REM job? Never had it. I discovered everything on my own, starting with textbooks in the church library at a very young age. Honestly, I just wish we actually had it available at my school. Instead, all we got was an awkward half-hour conversation from our counselor in the 9th grade where the school didn't even bother to provide students with protection or any guidelines for where they could go in an emergency. One thing I didn't know until losing my own virginity was that the hymen isn't necessarily supposed to tear or bleed. I knew that it was possible to hurt someone by mistake, but it seems equivalently relevant to be made aware of how to perform correctly to avoid causing pain and injury in the first place. That having your period is not something you need to be ashamed of or basically hide from the world. As an adult, no one gives enough. I get that you have to keep some things private, but I feel my school took it to a next level. I was too self-conscious about my body for the longest time and still struggle a bit with. Also, having a crazed religious mom didn't help either. Exactly how expensive children really are. Condom size matters. There is a difference between it fitting and it being functional. The wrong condom size can cause breakages, blood circulation issues, and overall a bad experience. That sex is also about pleasure and part of a healthy lifestyle. Also, teach us to understand and admire our bodies. Just minimize the overall shame we all have about them at least at one point in our lives. So many people struggle with their body image into adulthood, and it has a huge impact in relationships and mental health. Sex is more important than we give it credit for. Just wanted to say that my Texas middle school's sex ed week was removed and replaced with a train safety seminar. That it's okay to say no, that I shouldn't feel bad about it, and if the other person gets mad about they're in the wrong. Sex ed in general. I got health class in both the middle and high school. We learned all about STDs and abstinence, but nothing about contraception, outside of condoms, or safe sex. That's the Florida educational system for ya. About HPV. We were given vaccines against it but never taught about it. Never taught how it is spread or the effects it can have on a woman. I've had 3 partners in my life and I fully tested all of them before sleeping together because I'm so nervous of contracting illnesses. Had I known there was a virus that causes cancer that they don't test men for, I would probably still be a virgin today. At least I wouldn't have to get chunks ripped out of my cervix once a year, and have the ever-growing threat of cancer hovering over me. Absolutely hideous. Also, the vaccines do not protect against every strain, but that's not told to the girls getting the vaccines. So people are probably being less discerning than they would be if they knew they weren't covered. The education system really let me down here. That eating ass is best after a few drinks helps dull the senses. I wish we had something better than the abstinence-only BS they taught us. We were basically told not to have sex until we were ready to have babies. They didn't even teach us how that happens. It was basically learning all about the horrors of social diseases to scare us into never having sex, nothing on how to prevent them. What I'm missing here in the comments is hygiene. I wish kids were told about odors and infections of private parts, and how to prevent and treat them in connection to everyday life, sex and menstruation. That's what adult everyday looks like, yet we were told nothing about it, besides other adult stuff like money responsibility, time management or mental health. I wish we had sex ed. I knew something involving blood coming out of my vagina was a thing only because I had an older cousin. The first time I had my periods, my mother sent me to the bathroom with an unopened packet of sanitary pad. That was the first time I saw a pad in real life, and I had absolutely no idea how to use or dispose it. In schools, sex ed basically amounted to here are a list of STDs and don't have sex unless you want kids. No information about mood swings and other hormonal changes we go through. Masturbation was considered a sin. The first time I read about sex, it was an accident. I read it on a smutty book and I remember it traumatized me so much I promised to myself I was never getting married. Most importantly, I wish I knew about vaginal discharge because for a long time, I thought it was a me problem and it was my fault by being horny at the wrong time. I thought I was a nymphomaniac, which is funny because turns out, I am asexual. I went to a private Christian school, so my only sex education was if you do it you're going to hell. I'd have liked to have learned what guys do with their junk while sitting on the toilet having a poo. I have 2 grown sons and an ex-husband. I still am not sure of the mechanics, and don't tell me. Let me continue to wonder. Actual sex. We were shown animations of sperm and egg, but no idea where or how they got in that situation. We were also shown horrible pictures of STDs as a warning to not have sex. Not quite sure, but I know the men need it. I see comments on Reddit, men talking about women like they are bad for having sexual feelings. Also, you're taught women don't go through their sexual peak until later, making it more confusing at that age. But, men need to learn that vaginas don't just stretch out like a loose sock, they need to learn about ovulation. About the variety of diversity of vaginas and penises, size and shapes. That boobs won't always be equal size. That abortion for women is healthcare. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe and share the video to your friends, family, mailman and local fire station. I am a broke college student and would like to be able to afford dice for my snow cone machine. Have a wonderful day, and as always, drink plenty of water.